Here are two scary stories about working the night shift. The first story is called New Phone. It was my second day working the night shift at an old folks' home. The place was a nightmare. It smelled like stale waste and despair. The staff were overworked and underpaid, so we all had a pretty bad attitude. For the most part, the elderly residents were sweet, and I enjoyed caring for them. But there was one lady that everyone avoided. They called her Patient Zero. She had been in the facility for years, and no one knew what she was in for or why she was so violent. Her room was always kept locked because she would lash out at staff and other patients. One time she even bit off the nose of a poor old man who shared a room with her. Her bed was covered in restraints every night, because if they let their guard down for even a second, she would rip the covers off and try to escape. And when I say escape, I don't mean walk out the front door. She would try to climb out the window. She had tried to do it several times before, and they had installed a security screen over the window to stop her from doing it again. It didn't stop her though. She just started climbing the wall instead. On my first day, I had to restrain her after she climbed out the window and onto the roof. The night before, I had worked with a young female carer who had been at the facility for a few months. She told me that it was normal for us to be short-staffed. We usually had 2 carers covering the whole facility at night, but tonight we only had 1, so we were really busy. We had to restrain Patient Zero twice that night, and by the time we got her back into bed, it was 3 a.m. and neither of us had had a break yet. The night before, I had gotten so frustrated with Patient Zero that I snapped and yelled at her while restraining her. This made the other carer feel uncomfortable, and she stopped working with me. I was now alone, and I was dreading going into work that night. When I arrived, I noticed the new carer wasn't there, which meant we were really short-staffed. I went to go check on Patient Zero, and she was sitting on the edge of her bed looking at me. I asked her if she wanted me to help her to the toilet, and she just stared at me. She suddenly started crawling towards the window. I quickly stood in front of it and told her no. She crawled back to her bed, and then started pulling off the covers. I put the covers back on her and told her to stay in bed. She just stared at me. Then she looked down at her wrist and started hitting herself. I tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen to me. I felt trapped. I couldn't leave her alone. I knew if I did, she would try to escape, but I also couldn't watch her hit herself any longer, so I decided to call for backup. When the other carers came in, I explained what was happening, and they all just rolled their eyes and walked out again. Apparently they had talked to her already and said it wasn't a big deal. While they were gone, she took off her gown and started choking herself with it. When the others came back in, they pulled the gown off her, and one of them slapped her across the face. I couldn't believe it, so I quit on the spot. As I walked past Patient Zero, she grabbed my jacket and pulled me back to her bed. She was kneeling now, and she motioned for me to kneel beside her. I could see the insane look in her eyes, and I knew she was trying to communicate with me. I don't know if she wanted me to help her or hurt her, but either way, I wasn't sticking around to find out. I ran out of there as fast as I could. And now for the second story. The next day, I got a call from my boss asking me why I had left in the middle of my shift and told me I had to come back and finish it. I told her I had quit, and she said that wasn't an option. I needed that job and couldn't afford to quit. I reluctantly agreed to go back. It was 11 p.m. when I clocked in. I was dreading working the night shift again. My boss handed me a new phone. It was an old flip phone, and I assumed it was for emergencies only. I asked about the other carer who had been working the night before. My boss said she had quit. I went to go change into my uniform, and when I came out, my boss stopped me and said she needed to show me something. She took me to a storage room, and inside was the old wooden box. I opened it, and inside was a brand new name tag. It said Jessica. My boss said I had to wear that name tag all night. I thought it was weird, but I pinned it to my uniform. I went to check on Patient Zero, and she was sitting on the edge of her bed. She looked at me and smiled. I asked her if she wanted anything, and she pointed to the name tag. She reached out and touched it. I told her not to, but it was too late. She grabbed it and ripped it off my uniform. I told her to give it back, but she threw it on the floor and stomped on it. I felt a sudden urge to stomp on it with her, to smash the thing and feel the crunch of plastic under my feet. I don't know what came over me. I grabbed her name tag and started stomping on it. I don't know how long I did it for, but it felt good. Like I had finally snapped. I heard footsteps in the hallway, and I quickly tried to put the name tag back on my uniform. A shadow appeared in the doorway, and I looked up. It was my boss. She was staring at me with a disgusted look on her face. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but she closed it again and walked away. I was scared. I thought I had done something wrong. I looked back at patient 0 and she was smiling at me. Then she started crawling towards the window again. I restrained her and waited for my boss to come back. She was pale and sweaty. I could tell she was scared of me now. That's what my boss must have been thinking. She uncuffed patient 0 and told me to take her to the bathroom. On the way, she spat on me. I don't think she meant to, but I was still upset. I wiped it off my shirt and tried to ignore her. As we walked into the bathroom, I saw the old carer who had quit the night before. She was standing by the sink washing her hands. I asked her what she was doing there. She turned around and smiled at me. Then she washed her hands some more. I didn't want to be nosy, so I just walked out again. I could hear patient 0 screaming in the bathroom, but I didn't care. I went back to my desk to wait for my boss. She came back in and started writing something on a clipboard. I asked her what was wrong with patient 0, and she told me nothing. I asked her why she had come back to the bathroom then. She just stared at me and shook her head. I was confused, but I didn't want to talk to her anymore. I checked the clock. It was 2 a.m., and I hadn't had a break yet. I asked if I could go get some water. She told me no. I wasn't allowed to leave the facility without a partner. I told her I was thirsty, and she said that was my fault for not bringing a bottle with me. I was getting angry now, and I snapped back at her. She got really angry and stormed out of the room. I could hear her yelling in the hallway. I looked back at the bathroom. The door was open and patient 0 was gone. I quickly ran out of the room and into the hallway. My boss was there talking to the other carer. I told her patient 0 was gone. We all looked at each other for a moment. She was gone. We searched everywhere for her, but we couldn't find her. My boss called the police and told them a patient had gone missing. I knew I was going to get in trouble, but I wasn't worried about that anymore. I looked down the hallway and saw my boss's name tag lying on the floor. It was crushed and torn. I picked it up and stomped on it.